for, Blake's God of reason. So Kabbalah says that, that the divine energies come through paradox. Jesuits can hang with that. Sufis can hang with that. Taoists can hang with that. Jews have difficulty, Maybe on the level of the sense of humor, Jewish people can hang with it, but... So, Kabbalah is riddled with paradoxes, and you can't be the kind of person that believes in either ors to be a Kabbalist. It's a no-go. If you're a Hegelian dialectician, or you're attempting to look at the universe, it's either this or that, you're dealing with 3D logic, and Kabbalah is going to drive you nuts. So that's why they say that Kabbalah is sweet to a few and poison to many. Like, if you're in that kind of Peshat, simple-minded consciousness where you're looking for black and white, Kabbalah is the last place you should try to understand yourself or the universe from. So they say, don't even bother. It'll drive you crazy. And then it says, well, you should have a mortgage and a wife and all of the grounding things possible before you take the flight into Kabbalah. So, it's good advice. I'm probably about as crazy as they get at this point. I've had a few laboratory accidents here and there as a Kabbalist. Everybody that explores, the paranormal or lucid dreaming or is interested in other dimensions eventually gets caught in a traffic jam here and there. But the idea, one of the real underlining benefits of Kabbalah as opposed to New Age work is the notion that it's very important to build a vessel. If you are the kind of person that wants to channel dimensional energy from other places, and you want to have some ecstasy, and you want to have visits with the Shekhinah, like Moshe did, traveling through the wilderness, then for sure you're going to want to work with your nervous system to get it strong enough so that when those pulsations and frequencies come through you, you're available and you're not going to get fried. Okay? And anybody that does any kind of channeling of any kind soon learns that there are some dangers, and you want to get your nervous system tight, which is one of the reasons why I come to Zev as frequently as I can. Because his work is replenishing the etheric body with that beautiful blue light, and it gives you a strength in the nervous system. And it used to be that we would do like a couple hours of practice every day, like Tibetan yoga, this and that, to keep the nervous system pristine. But in our kind of crazy universe now, how many people do more than their little 20-minute meditation or their Tai Chi or their yoga? We don't have that level of discipline. And from another standpoint, if you want to look at Kabbalah in relationship to India, Kabbalah may be a particular Hebraic branch of, what is it called? Jnana Yoga. It's a mind yoga, okay? Which is considered to be one of the most powerful. It's kind of the cross between Jnana, I may have been pronouncing it a little different than you've heard, Jnana Yoga and Kriya Yoga. The word Kriya is almost a Hebrew word. It means to meet, Kara. Kiryat Arba, Kriya, but it's also Kofre Shud, Aleph, something like that.
Kriya is to read.
To read?
Yeah, like Kro. But is it with an Aleph or an Ayin?
I'm not sure on that one.
It's a Y, so it's probably an Ayin.
Probably an Ayin, yeah.
I get so used to.
So there's the Kabbalah of the nervous system. And some of that Kabbalah was also, there's the other Kabbalah which I want to introduce you to do, which is the Kabbalah of sound. Okay? And maybe we'll do it right now, because there's a couple in this group that really like that. So give me a Hebrew word or phrase that you want to hear the Kabbalah of. So Ahava is the life breath of the Aleph and the life breath of the Beit. The life breath of the cosmic energy that comes out of the wormhole and bursts in and creates the substratum for the universe, little midrash on the Aleph, that forms the unity principle that underlies matter. And the life breath of Bereshit, the expansion, contraction, the process of creation that collects energy out, inside, and then bursts it into the universe. Okay? And creates the cosmic container or the vessel for the Aleph energy in bringing it back into a form. Okay? So the infinite energy from the formless bursting out into the universe and being held in the container of the bait, the cosmic bait of Bereshit, of creation, and bringing that back. Okay? So the life breath of the Aleph, the life breath of the bait. That's kind of a loose Suarez midrash on Ahava.
Would you like to repeat
Then, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I was asking if the young lady would like to repeat that.
Okay. No need for repetition. And then the repetition in Kabbalah is always different than the first time around. It's always a midrash or a riff or a spin anyway. So Ahava on the vowels is 3 Alephs, right? It's the ah sound, which is the heart sound. So the Sufis say, and if you look at the Mid-Eastern language, it was meant to keep you in your heart. Because there's so many ahs. Ahava, Merkava. You know, the words are built on the ah sound to keep you in the heart. So, and then the H sound, the ha, is a breath, like in the divine name. It creates a universe. It creates what my teacher called a time-space continuum, basically. It's the letter 5. It's time, but with consciousness. 4th dimensional time with consciousness. So, ahava. And the trick is to take that and create it in sound in such a way that there is what you could call a sonic continuum, which is the vibrational frequency of that ah spreading out. So I'll try it a few different ways. We'll see whether, what hits home. So ahava. And then you could do it, that's kind of more Abulafian, inner sound resonated, but you could also do it Ahava Shalom. So you can take it out and send it out through the breath. So this is a little bit of the science of the high priest, if you will, Cohen Gadol, of being able to take sound that would normally go out into the universe, but bring it back into the vessel to vibrate and potentize or resonate all of the chambers within the body. And if you put your attention to that with your language, and you realize at any time we can stop and go into that kind of meditation, particularly with the vowels, because the vowels are the modulation of the pure consciousness, but with an awareness of how the consonants hold that energy, then that was a science. It was a science of prayer. It goes with the melodic of the trope of Hebrew, but was basically spoken of as chanting the divine names, which is another aspect of Abulafian Kabbalah from my standpoint. Okay. Let me give you one or two others. One of my all-time...
Hebrew Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom?
Yeah, I like that.
Well, let's just do Shalom first. So in the Sefer Yetzirah, the Shin is in the balancing of the Chokhmah and the Bina centers, and the Mem is in the belly, and the Lamed is that which pivots, and it's called the arms of the universe. So the Lamed goes out to the 12 constellations, and the Vav in Shalom connects heaven and earth. So here you have a word in Hebrew that brings in the spiritual energy through the Shin, connects you to the constellational grid through the Lamed, connects heaven and earth in a pillar of light through the Vav, and then gives it a cosmic container through the Mem. But you can feel it moving through your body because the Shin sound will go in Chokhmah Bina. The Lamed moves through the 12 meridians, if you will. The Vav is the spinal column that connects heaven and earth in you, and the Mem is in the belly. So you're bringing, this is like Chinese alchemy. It's bringing the fire of one center to the water of another. So Shalom, you contract it, you end up with Shem, the signature, the name. If you reverse that, you end up with Moshe.
Wait, how?
So, there's the harmonics of it. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the vowels and sending them out in vibration like stones on water. Okay. One of my favorites is Eliyahu. Eliyahu, we think, the prophet who comes and visits. If you look at Eliyahu, there's 4 vowels. A, E, A, U. So his name is pure vowels. And the vowels actually, if you feel them in your body, come from the Or Elyon down. You think of Eliyahu going up in a Merkava, in an updraft, but the vowels of his name come down like a teepee of light. So Eliyahu goes A, E, A, U. I'll just do it in vowels first rather than using the consonants. So it goes Well, there's a parallel thing in the Sufism, absolutely, in Wazifas. So
you hear all those noises when they're praying.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of harmonics in some of the, and that's where Abu Lafi and the Sufis Abu Lafi picks some things up from his neighbors, but then he put it back into a Hebrew framework. That's my understanding. So, and you're probably in an altered state of consciousness right now from those 3 chants, whether you know it or not. The sound is the quickest way to turn the dial there. Okay. Not an easy thing to teach, but once you remember it, you kind of want to, it's food for the soul. So I've done my little intro now on the letters, the 4 kinds of Kabbalah. You've had like a few little appetizers. Let me know in this moment what aspect of Kabbalah draws you, and I certainly want to give you some teachings on the Tree of Life and Kabbalistic astrology because that's very practical. But I still want to know what you're impractically interested in.
Well, I had no idea where I was coming today.
Yes.
And I love astrology, so it's perfect for me.
Okay. We're heading towards astrology. What's your deep interest right now, Leanne?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Full moon.
The full moon.
Full moon.
Okay.
At 11 p.m.
That's right. I take off on an airplane at 11 p.m. tonight, and I'm going to be able to see it. And we're heading into a time now where we're going to see all the planets in the sky. An astrologer friend of mine said that this is a calendar-making moment that we're in.
It is a history.
It's a historical moment, and
The whole month is made with the alignment.
Really?
yeah, we're going to see like a star, like the Star of Bethlehem, with Mars and Venus conjuncting Saturn, actually. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, see, at the end of the month.
that's May 5th or 6th.
The end of the month is very heavy.
Yeah, it's a very powerful. All astrologers talked about was the Moon Pluto or the Pluto Saturn opposition, but
Right.
we've got something quite unique coming up. Good to get out to a place where you can meditate under the stars. Tonight will be beautiful with the full moon, but as the full moon it breaks, as we head towards new moon, then the visibility of the stars gets stronger. Yeah. So.
What was the new moon this month? What kind of angle did it hit? Did you look into it?
I guess I wrote about it. It was around 22, 23 degrees of Aries. So I have written an epic poem, I don't have it with me, called Aleph 2160, and that is symbolically the last day of Passover. So it's like it's the seeding of a crossing of the Red Sea. So I'd say that we're historically entering into a time that is an exodus, but it's not an exodus from one land to another. It's an exodus from one consciousness state to another, which the Sufis call a makum, by the way, from one makom to another makom, like that. So.
Sfirat Omer starts tonight, is that it?
No, Sfirat Omer starts the second night of Pesach, so we're already.
So we're how
Getting
into
closer
it?
to the Shavuot, which is the end.
Yeah, Shavuot's the night of the 16th of May, so you could count
We're
back
in the
maybe.
middle.
Yeah.
You said there are 4 types of Kabbalah?
Oh, I was just riffing on it, but I identified 4, yeah. The Kabbalah of the Otiot, of the letters, which is the Kabbalah that I'm most interested in for, understanding Torah, and Suarez gives a way people who are even not even Hebrew speaking to enter that. There's the Kabbalah of the Sfirot, which is the Tree of Life, and Warren Kenton did a so-so job, but he's put out lots of books on understanding the psychology of the Sfirot, and you can connect that to astrology quite easily. Then there's Maaseh Bereshit, which is the Kabbalah of cosmology, and there you can go to Fred Wolf, who studied with Suarez, and Stephen Hawking. You can go to people who are like looking at how the universe is created. And then there's Kabbalah, which I like to call the Kabbalah of names, which is invocational Kabbalah. This is and it's not ceremonial magic at all. That Kabbalah is the Kabbalah of inviting beings and masters of light and dimensional frequencies to come closer. And that requires the Kabbalah of the vessel to make one's mouth, one's heart, one's soul, one's mind a vessel for the divine mind, the divine heart, the divine soul. And Sufism has an interesting way of working in that, and unfortunately the rationalist Judaic mind didn't want to touch it, because the few people that did touch it became great pseudo-messiahs.
Like who?
Well, like Shabtai Tzvi. I mean, it's like if you get to a place where you're doing that, you have a few little divine cities appearing, and you've got some psychological insight and a little bit of clairvoyance and a little bit of clairaudience, you could hit what you could call Mashiach mind. You could feel the anointing of the crown chakra, you could feel the Shekhinah coming through you, and it would be easy to all of a sudden feel that you've attained that as a permanent state of consciousness and go around and tell people, I'm the one. Like the ego could easily do that.
The problem with most gurus.
It's the problem with most gurus. You've been
John, he's
right. You've been doing a real lifetime study of
that's
that. Right. So the Kabbalah always lets you know that you're a little tiny speck of the Yod, and you're connected to the Aleph. So Kabbalah teaches you the paradox of being. Chabad says it very nicely. If you can get to the place where you are like zero and nothing in your own eyes, meaning that you have no more egoic consciousness left. You're not a new ager evaluating where you are in the path anymore. You just dissolve into a mystical oneness now and again, and you don't bother to evaluate where you are in relation, on the ladder at all. And that's the teaching that you get in some of the Chabad or Baal Shem Tov teachings, where you get, a little guy who's a shoemaker just happens to be one of the Lamed Vav Tzadikim.
Wow.
So, and that level of consciousness is very, very beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. And in that place, you don't have to have much in the realm of divine mind, but you got to have a little bit of divine heart space there. Okay.
We talked about Moshe in the past.
Yes.
And is the Kabbalah related to the Ba and the Ka in the Egyptian terminology, the soul and the spirit?
Well, I suppose Drinvalo would think that. Whether I think that or not.
Or even the Kaaba in Mecca, there's all these...
Yeah. Look, the word kav also means womb, belly. It's the receptacle. Kof beit as a root. Kof is the speed of light, and beit is bereshit. So kof beit is taking something that's moving at the speed of light and giving it a cosmic container.
What do you mean kof is the speed of light?
Kof is the 19th letter. When you put it out in Gematria is 186. Kof vav fe sofit. And 186,000 feet per second, or whatever it is the speed of light. So and the letter Kof is your head sitting on top of your spinal column as a pictogram. Okay, that's the letter Kof. So.
The word
Oh, I never even put that together. How'd you?
Yeah, Kof.
Is that the word for head?
Yeah, in Yiddish. Yeah.
Cup.
Kof,
Right.
yeah.
In Greek, I assume.
Yeah, Kafa. Yeah, the letter.
Kabbalah.
Yeah. So it's Kabbalah, if you want to look at it that way, is consciousness at the Adam Kadmon level, connected to Bereshit, to the burst of creation at the seed moment, and going out through the vehicle of the constellational grid, the Lamed, the 12 arms of the universe, is the phrase used in Kaplan's Kabbalah. I've had one or two people who thought that Kaplan was the reincarnation of Maimonides. That's an interesting idea.
Rabbi Kaplan?
Arya Kaplan. He writes with the same impeccable clarity that Maimonides wrote as. I have 2 or 3 friends who studied with him a long time ago. So they probably did too much hashish, and that's how they got to that idea.
No, it was very simple, very direct, not a lot of mishmash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So numerology is part of that first Kabbalah that you described.
Numerology is an aspect of the physics Kabbalah. Numerology is an aspect of Kabbalah Maaseh Bereshit, because numerology is gematria, is harmonics. So numerology isn't just looking at a name and reducing it to a particular vibrational frequency. Numerology is understanding that every number creates a grid pattern in the universe. So it's the science of harmonics. I used to do a little thing that I called harmonics of the Elohim. And I believe that there's quite an unusual there's a few different mathematical systems nested in Torah, like musical languages. And there's somebody just put out something now, the Solfeggio series, and there's some things emerging. People are looking at biblical stuff and finding that harmonic frequencies are nested in certain Hebrew words. It's pretty fascinating. So that's the science of harmonics, where frequencies have meaning. I'll give you an example. I put it in my novel. Christianity is all subsumed with the number 666, right? Because John of Patmos said that was the number of the beast. Well,
I wouldn't say it's all subsumed with it.
Well,
it's more popular culture is more subsumed with it.
Okay, that's right. It was nested in one of the Gospels, and then it became, people got obsessed with it. Subsumed wasn't the right word. And thought that, this is the number of a being, Neru, or an antichrist, or something like this. But if you're a Kabbalist, and you know harmonics, you know that 666 was the number of shekels that it took to build Solomon's temple. You know it's the number grid of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 up to and including the number 36. So it gathers numbers 36 into itself. And there's some interesting gematria, like Shemesh Yud He Vav He is 666. L'Rosh Pinah toward the original face is 6. So there's some beautiful gematria in Hebrew, but the 666 probably was a gematria in Greek. It was probably a gematria in Greek. But the one that's more interesting and Pythagoras was a great Kabbalist too, by the way. So he studied with the Merkava Kabbalists in Alexandria. So Pythagoras is the one who brought the Kabbalah into Western mind.
But Alexandria didn't exist at Pythagorean.
You bet it did.
It did, but it wasn't called Alexandria.
Yeah, it had another name.
Right.
But there was a group. Pardon?
Around the time of Philo-Judaeus?
Exactly. And it was the time of the Merkava school. So Pythagoras went there, spent a couple years poking about the Egyptian mysteries, but got somehow initiated into the Hebrew harmonics of that Kabbalah school.
That's where he learned harmonics.
Yeah, a source. Probably not the only, but a source. So the numbers, a number that follows is always the master of the one before. So 33 is the master of 32, right? 65 is the master of 64. It's the unity principle, or the knowingness of the whole pattern. Okay? So that's a good principle to know.
It's fascinating because there's no ultimate master then.
Absolutely. There's a series of integrations that happen in life, so that as you attain a certain level of consciousness, you experience the unity principle of that dimension of consciousness, and then you move on to your next learning. So 667 is the master of 666. So what does that become in Hebrew? Anybody want to take a quick guess?
I don't know. What's
667 is the Hebrew phrase refuah shalema.
Oh, wow.
So complete and total healing. Refuah shalema is the integration and the total understanding of what's going on at the 666 level.
Well, 6 is like total physicality.
It's not exactly.
6 days of creation.
It's the 6 days of creation on 3 different dimensions, yeah. But it's not
667
refuah shalema.
again. How is that?
The gematria, resh pei. You have to write it out.
Okay.
Refuah shalema with a vav and refuah in it. So
They put the 999 number
Yeah.
to oppose the 666.
it's
Why
a-
would they do that? What's
I
the-
don't know, Elian. There's a lot of kind of low-grade pseudo-Kabbalah floating around the universe, and it's coming a little bit out of the keys of Enoch. Not that isn't an interesting place, but it's like people are always using numbers to create a New Age gathering, a New Age festival, this sort of thing. I think the 999 got pushed by Patricia Cote-Robles in Tucson. I think she's the one who worked with that, and it is in the keys as well. Her tact did something with it.
I don't know if you were going to mention anything about like past lives, like reincarnation and Kabbalah.
That was a whole school in Tzfat. The Ari, Luria, and the Eitz HaChaim they were working a lot with phrenology.
What's
And,
phenomenon?
reading of the face and reading of the hands and being able to identify what you could call soul root. So there's a whole, I think there's a Sefer Hagilgul or Gilgulim, the book of cycles or reincarnations in
the
Lurianic Kabbalah. Don't think it's in the Zohar. And that, it's like you have to be at a certain station in consciousness to read that.
How does the Akashic records fall into Kabbalah? Or doesn't?
Boy, how to take that one. It's like when you're in a place of where your service work or your work is to interpret that realm because people are on a level of soul remembering.
Okay.
The Akashic Records is where you go when you're doing what is called soul memory work. And that means that you're putting together your understanding of all of your Gilgulim, and that's a good explanation of your karmic illnesses, diseases, proclivities, relationships, all of that. So an astrologer needs to have some of that, but it's much more alive and useful if it comes from within the soul, through the dreams and through memory or visions, as opposed to being gifted. But somebody
Does
who's...
the Kabbalah mention it at all, the
Oh, yeah.
Akashic records?
Well, it would be called something else.
Wouldn't it be called the
I don't
Book of
know.
Life, right?
What would it be called?
The Book of
Yeah, Sefer Chaim, I guess, sure.
But getting back to past lives, you were saying they read the faces, and how do they find past lives?
Well, there was in Sephardi Judaism, there was always good phrenology and good reading of hands and eyes, and you name it. But it was often done in relationship to biblical archetypes. So if I took you to Tzfat tomorrow, I'm sure that I used to know a palmist in Tzfat. It's like Tzfat was where they kind of emigrated to in time, at least in ours nowadays. The idea was to see whether your soul is from the root of Noach or Yosef, Avraham, or Sarah, or Rivka, so that you're looking back to see what ancestor energy your particular soul is most in resonance with. Now, if you're a boy, you can see what your parsha is for your bar mitzvah. Mine was Noach. My name is Yosef. I mean, you can play with that, and you might not be a total pure archetype. You might be like a bridge between. So that's the Kabbalah that's sort of taking you to look at your own book of life, your own RNA, DNA coding, your own genetics, your soul history, but nested in a particular archetypal matrix. Okay, And as time goes on, in the initial phases of that, you may be fascinated with it and you may use it for your personal mythology. But as time goes on and the consciousness becomes less egoically enamored with that, then you may begin to realize this, like Rumi talks about being, an ant and a beetle and, being every life form, from the beginning, from the first moment of creation to, the bartender says it's closing time. This would be the words that Coleman Barks would put in Rumi's mouth, Coleman being an ex-alcoholic. This earth is called the taverna in the Rumi works.
But they did talk about being sober in the Sufi tradition, right?
Being sober?
I mean, sober or drunk with God, that.
Well, yeah, it's, being shikr or drunk is, intoxication is soul intoxication in that language. So, yeah. And, Chabad carries it out in its way, with schnapps on the bima. It's part of Hebraic tradition too, maybe not quite as elegant. So, ecstasy has in many mystical traditions, the idea is to be absorbed in, what do they call it, the Godhead or a divine state of consciousness, and just disappearing totally. Whereas the Jewish or Hebrew view of it is more or less a partial absorption, a running and returning, meaning going into dissolution and mystical absorption, but maintaining of unique individual identity so that you can come back and speak the unspeakable. Come back and share your journey with your tribe. So Judaism is very much focused on, yes, go to that mystical place, but don't just disappear. Otherwise you'll become like Benzoma, you'll go into Pardes, and you won't want to come back. How much of Christianity, Christianity just wanted to split. It was built on let's get out of here. And Gnosticism too, unfortunately, got to that place. Gnosticism, it might have started out in the way that you thought it started out.
That was,
Okay. But Gnosticism, we won't go there. But Gnosticism eventually ends up, and Hertak's a Gnostic. You start believing that the creator of this solar... Yeah.
What's the old form of Gnosticism? New Gnosticism is not so much a rejection of the world.
No, not so much. But the old Gnosticism was the one Gnostic in the Alexandrian Quartet ended up packing it in, if you remember, Persword. Gnosticism and Christian mysticism that flailed the body was an attempt to leave the physical, which was considered, downgraded, evil, whatever, and go back to a more pure state. And it had an overriding belief that the creator of this particular solar system had locked us in. Yes, Neoplatonism has that too. Whereas the Kabbalistic worldview is that this place has all of the sparks, all the divine sparks here. It's a much more sophisticated cosmology. It's Lurianic Kabbalah. That the divine sparks are nested in creation, but there's klipot from former creations here too. So that we're dealing with the residue of creations before this one in the energy matrix that are pushing people towards Yetzer Hara, towards the evil inclination. So this is like former creations that didn't work out, nested in the substratum, that when the psyche is in states of depression or whatever, then these entities that aren't in the physical can take over beings and turn them towards anti-life. So if you look at the Hebrew Torah standpoint, and you realize that the whole of Egyptian civilization, and I'm about to enter it in another couple days, had a whole eschatology on leaving, like making it back to the world of the imperishable stars. Same with all the funerary rites.
There was more culture in not being there.
Exactly. So the Hebrew people inverted that and said, I put before you death and life, choose life. Mm-hmm. It's much more pragmatic. Forget about the beer for the afterlife journey. Bring the divine energy into the here and now. It's more a Buber kind of mysticism. And there's many, you can look at this mirrored in the contemporary view of ascension, right? There's a whole group of beings who look at ascension, they're tired of living, and they want to get out of here and get on to the next solar system. It's
Then you'll
enough
never
over.
ascend.
Pardon?
Of course.
Right.
never
So, and
said.
then there's another group that's realizing that the physical body needs to be absolutely transmuted, and we're bringing as much of the divine consciousness and sparks into the flesh and into where we are right now. And yes, we have healing crisis, but that doesn't mean we need to say, enough, I'm getting out of here.
Could you comment on, remember I said I'm not really a scholar of the Kabbalah, the Dath.
Neither am I.
Dath, the
Da'at.
Da'at.
Da'at is a portal. Da'at in Hebrew means knowledge. It's the unification of the top three sfirot. I'll move to the sfirot in a bit. Keter, Chochmah, and Bina. And then Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet. And Da'at is a portal, and it probably sits at the back of the throat, what you would call the throat chakra. So Da'at is like a journey into the void. It's sometimes called the abyss. And it's a journey whereby you lose personal identity as you go into transpersonal zones. So it's very frightening. Yeah, it's the one that's got the little fence around it. So you could be in your personal heart chakra and Tiferet, and you could have Gevurah, mastery of boundaries, and Chesed, compassion, but you're still in the realm of the personal universe. But when you go up into the higher spheres, you will lose a certain aspect of your identity. So Da'at is like a threshold. So in the same way that the throat chakra exists for us, and there's a deep Kabbalistic teaching that we create through our voice and through the sound we make and the words that we speak. Okay? So language in the Kabbalah creates reality. This leads you into kind of hermeneutic study. There's certain aspects of language study, that philosophically are thought of. In terms of, see Robert Fritz, who's the composer who created the DMA system. As you speak, abracadabra. It's our Aramaic, abara kadabara. As I create, as I speak. So we create our reality as we choose to bring into the world. Yep. So that's that. If you take the implications of it, then it's absolutely. Yeah, the golem's a whole other aspect. So.
Production of that in your film.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Let me catch it next time I'm here. Let me know. Appreciate it. So. That creation with language, Egypt had that too. Like every thought, word, and gesture had to be in a line.
This is the nature of magic. I mean,
Yep. But you see, magic from a ceremonial standpoint, most people think of magic from an egoic point of view. But magic from the mystical point of view is more participation in the sea of synchronicity. Okay? Where the thought form is in alignment with divine mind. So there's a big difference there, and there's a lot of people that have fallen into manipulation of the world of Asiya for personal gratification of some kind or another. But that's an egoic thing that's happening, whereas real mysticism is way higher than magic. Because mysticism means that there's been a purification that's happened to the soul to get to the place where the soul is at the place of co-creation. That's something else. That's when you've made a contract with the Elohim, the divine energies, to be a vessel for some change. You had a question,
Yeah.
Devar.
It's kind of like, how do you go past the, I have the understanding of thought creating reality.
Yes.
And how do you get past that? Maybe it's an egoic thing, you know what I'm saying, on some level? How do you get past that, all that manipulation, and getting towards the understanding of God as the creator?
Well,
how to separate yourself as the creator and God as the creator, because in Jewish understanding there's God the creator and we're the created. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, if you're creating with your mind and then things happen.
The Kabbalah teaches that creation is ongoing and that we are co-creators. So that means that you have a level of responsibility for the ongoing creation of the universe through your prayers, through your meditations, through your conversations.
So how do we maintain that humbleness? Even if we become co-creators.
Oh, we stub our toe now and again. That helps maintain humbleness. We look in the mirror. A relationship goes. A beloved says, "Hey, you're not where you thought you were." That's how it happens. It's like we get enough feedback to keep us humble. We should anyway. The idea in Kabbalah is to use your creativity as a laboratory to learn about the capital C creator. So Kabbalah is a path for an artist. It's a path for a painter, a poet, an artist, a sculptor. I know Kabbalists working in every art form just about. Dancing, dance. So it's how to work with bringing energies into the world of Asiyah, into creation. It's a beautiful, beautiful teaching. And it's, it's like there's the joy of creativity at the root of Kabbalah. Really. And that's why Kabbalah is a good antidote for most of Talmud and Torah and religion, and because most religion has ethics, which is absolutely important to the evolution of the soul, but at a certain point, you get dessert, which is the creative level. But that's a different level of responsibility. You have to be a moral being. That's why the rabbis wanted to save Kabbalah until everything else had happened. Like if you haven't reached a certain station in soul evolution and are intrinsically a moral being, like Taoists say that there's no reason to discipline a child. Like a human being whose inner child is intact, who has received love from parents, will naturally follow the Tao. Okay, I believe that Kabbalah has a similar viewpoint about a human being. But religion in the moral ethics part is very much tikkun oriented.
Which means?
The making of a correction. Okay. There's different levels of correction or setting something upright. But the tikkun model came more or less out of Lurianic Kabbalah, because if you look and you see that there's a fallen universe and that there's evil and thought forms from other worlds impinging, then the work is to set things upright. Jason Schulman has a way of talking about it. He calls putting the creator back on his base or something, isn't it?
It's like Chabad thing.
Yeah, Chabad's working on that one. Yeah. And there's different kinds of tikkun. There's tikkun nefesh, tikkun neshama.
Would a ghost kind of be someone who wants to be here and make a correction?
I don't know about that. But think about beings that are caught between realms. Mm-hmm. There's a vast number of entities, if you want to use that term, or consciousness that hasn't reincarnated, that hasn't gone on. And in a certain sense, any daydream, any thought form, any desire that your mind has entertained in any lifetime could be a ghost,
And so how do they go up to the next level? Those kind of
Well, if they have an integrated place of consciousness, there's usually a fear involved. Like in the times that I've worked with people that do that work, and I do it very occasionally, you have to make a contract and if there's a bribe or a barter that's in place. I remember I was in Mexico once exploring some caves in the Yucatan with a friend of mine who's Scorpio with moon in Pisces, and I could really trust her to hang in that world. And we went into a cave, and it was palpable. There was people that had left, and they'd never left. I mean,
We're in Mexico?
yeah, it was
Go down to the World Trade Center. They're there. Those beings. There's
Mexico
energy
has some
there.
dark
Really?
stuff going on.
Yes.
I mean,
well, then there
there's
should be some
ritual
more work
Mexico.
done there. I got a newsletter. I thought it was from you that New Ager said everybody in the World Trade Center had an automatic ascension, and you know,
I don't
I
believe
thought.
everything I pass on.
Oh, okay. You just. You're what they call a double agent then.
Someone believes that I'm putting it out there for people who want to do it. But no, there's still a
if
heavy
somebody
energy.
can move from one dimension to the next level,
Yeah,
they're
that's
stuck
called-
in between. What would they do in order to go up or
They
come down?
would.
They sometimes can't do. We have to do it for them through mantras or
Yup.
energy, showing them light.
You make a
Never
contract
be
with
stuck.
somebody that can help you. So, and we we have contracts with our ancestors. It's China. China believes that. I believe that the Hebraic world believes that too. Our ancestors help us from where they are, but as we are the genetic embodiment of some of their karma, by clearing ourselves and healing ourselves, we actually are healing things in other time dimensions as well.
And why would that happen? That somebody gets stuck in between worlds.
We're all one being. So it happens that you're in a tribal matrix and different people explore different avenues. We're all perceptual windows for the divine energy. We are all the eye of Elohim on some level. So at different moments, you know, the aperture gets stuck.
Also,
Fear happens. You know, I don't know how to say
At
it.
the World Trade Center, there's people who didn't even know what happened. They're sitting in their office one minute, and the next minute they're dust. So their consciousness is still stuck, I would think.
apart. I mean, we're multidimensional beings, and so you can, if you have a phenomena that you would call a ghost, where you have a repetitive, a compulsive type action occurring, that in a way so that other planes of energy are perceivable here, it doesn't necessarily mean that I would say it doesn't mean that all of that greater entity is involved in that compulsion. There's a lot going on in every created spirit, and just as a part of you can be obsessed on, you know, your social faux pas in the 7th grade, there's another part. There's another part that has gone on and has a career someplace, and you know, so we are that vast. I think this is a rather bit of a digression away from.
Yeah.
I want to get back on the Sephirot,
Okay.
but I just had to say that because just if you have a compulsive repetitive action, which is what most ghostly phenomena appear to be, it doesn't mean that the entire entity is involved in that. We're big.
That's called an energy pattern. We all have them in our body. We all have places where we have an emotional frequency stuck in an organ, it's a mind
of
state
thinking.
a way of thinking, a habit pattern
Well, it's trauma.
stuck.
It's like post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
You could have a nightmare every night of your life.
Yeah.
And that could be perceivable as a ghost, perhaps, on some other level, you know.
So the secret of detrancing is to find a resonance point, or to go travel back in the timeline to the moment before the crystallization happened. The healer that I really loved reading about, and I met him once, was Daskalos. The Greek, because he was in his own way, a master of Kabbalah, great being, and he knew how to deal with entities like nobody's business. He was brilliant at it. Daskalos, it means teacher in Greek.
Daskalos.
Lived on the island of Cyprus.
I would just like to say, because I do a lot of work with entities and
Yes.
spirits and so forth, there are several different levels, as you say, but they aren't all doing repetitive tasks. Some are obsessed in that it is a mental repetitiveness,
Yeah.
but some are right on point, and they have something that maybe even for centuries that they've been trying to enact for good or ill, and they will come in on cue to people who are very sensitive or in certain situations.
Yeah.
And it isn't repetitive.
Right,
They'll come
no,
in
it's a different
the present context, but some are back in history also. It is, as you say, it's a nexus, it's a matrix, and they aren't limited to our 3D bodies, so they're going
Right.
to come in all
And
different
personal evolution is one thing, and tribal and the evolution of the race is another. So there are certain things that are held in place because they are a kind of a weak energetic link that needs to be overcome, and so somebody in a lifetime could volunteer to do that one. Possible. Let me give you a quick 5-minute run through the tree, because if I don't do that now, it won't happen. So, and I'm not even, this is real Kabbalah from the higher levels. I'm not even going to write on it. I'm just going to point. Okay. So, there's a certain zivug, or certain connection between spheres in the Tree of Life. You have the Keter Malchut connection, which is the heaven and earth connection. That's the soles of the feet, the crown of the head. You have the hemispheric connection of the brain, which is Bina and Chochmah. And different Kabbalists disagree as to right and left brain on that one. It's quite fascinating. Most people think that the right brain consciousness is in primarily Chochmah, and Bina is more the left brain, mathematical, language, memory aspect. Okay?
Like more the feminine side.
Yep. Then there's the Chesed Gevura aspect, and the Chesed is the boundlessness and is the heart in expansion, and the Gevura is the heart or the will in contraction. So Rollo May wrote a book about that one. It was called Love and Will. Then you have the Netzach and the Hod, Netzach and Hod, the tap like a computer. And that is, Zev Shimon Alevi does a good job with that. He calls the Hod the perceptual mind language realm, and the Netzach the emotional value, music, dance, rhythm realm. Yeah, Netzach. Netzach means to lead in music in Hebrew. And then you have the Jungian one, which is the Yesod Tiferet, where the Yesod is the moon and the Tiferet is the sun. The Yesod is the subconscious, the Tiferet is the conscious. And that's the one that Jung says we need to kind of bring into balance by around the age of 35, 36, something like that. So these are called, I believe this is what Jesus called the 5 trees. These 5 partsufim in Kabbalah are the 5 unions or conjunctions on the Tree of Life that need to come into balance. And only, and you get people who are pretty far out on a sphirot, and they will call into their lives somebody who's equally as far out to bring the energy system into balance. That's why you get, Blake used to satirize it, and he called in any relationship, there's always someone that's prosperous, and then there's the devourer. There's always one that's emanating and one that's consuming.
Can you quickly just run through, because it's been so long for me.
Planets.
But the English, so like splendor, beauty, wisdom.
Oh, I don't want to do that because it's confusing. But let me talk about planets for a second, because there are a few people here interested in Kabbalistic astrology. I don't even need the map for this. Keter is considered to be ruled by Neptune, cosmic consciousness, or delusion, depending, psychic impression from other realms. Bina is ruled by Saturn, but the Hebraic version of Saturn is the Great Mother. It's not the Greek version of Saturn that's cutting off its testicles and stuff. The Greek version is an aberrant, whereas the Hebrew version, Saturn is the Great Mother. It's the ruler of the Shabbat.
So it's the Hebrew version that's the Great Mother?
Yes. Yes, Bina, the Shabbat, the sea of compassion.
Saturn is which planet?
Saturn's going to be in the sky soon,
Which sign?
conjunct
Capricorn?
Mars and Venus.
Where on the tree would that be?
Saturn would be in Bina, over here. Okay? The ruler of Chochmah is Uranus, what the Tibetans call the crazy wisdom. So Uranus is that planet that takes 84 years to go around the zodiac. 84 in Hebrew is the gematria of Chalom. It's also the gematria of Enoch. And Uranus as a planet has its north pole going out the galactic plane. So Uranus can, every time when Uranus was at 27 degrees Sag, it pulled in the energy of the galactic center into our solar system. So that was the harmonic convergence birth moment.
So Hanael would be the angel of that? Something like that.
Don't know. Don't know on the angelic realm. It could be the realm of the Chashmalim. Okay. The electrical beings. Then
Which one was the Uranus?
Chokhmah. And then Mars is Gevura, which is the power for self-restraint and self-discipline. Chesed is ruled by Jupiter, which is called Tzedek in Hebrew. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, and Mars is which one?
Mars is the ruler of Capricorn. Well, no, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, but rules Aries.
Aries.
Okay. Tiferet is, of course, the sun, Shemesh. Netzach is ruled by Venus, the emotional feeling center, value center of a human being, which I consider in the body is the spleen pancreas area, sugar balance. And there's a whole typology from Sfirot that can show where illness is showing up and why, psychologically. And then Hod is Mercury, which is nervous system. Okay. And then
Gemini.
yeah. And then the moon, Levana, is the ruler of Yesod, the foundation, which is what you take in. And then the Malchut is the ascendant in an astrology chart, which is the last choice that the soul makes coming in, what the degree of the ascendant is, and decides where the planets are going to go in the house wheel. So that's a very specific decision.
Wow, that surprises me, some of those assignments.
Great. You need to be surprised. So, okay, I'm sorry to have you
no,
leave.
but it was great.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there something I can read or something that you...
Well, send me a little email and I'll do that.
You have
Okay.
something like a little...
I have a little card tucked away
The
somewhere.
astrology of the Sefirot.
Yes.
So you're going to talk a little bit about the astrology of the pad of the Otiyot? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dayan,
It's too complex
Too
to do it.
complex.
It really is. It's too complex. I'd love to.
So
I would like
just
to...
one question then.
Yeah.
What would the relationship be between the moon ruling Yesod and the moon being related to Gimel? Just to take just one.
Do you think the moon's related to Gimel?
I do.
Why?
Well, there's a whole literature on it for one thing, and meditatively,
Gabriel.
Gamal,
Yeah.
Gabriel, the high priestess, the list goes on.
It's not my understanding that the moon is related to Gimel. I'll give you the one that I work with, and you might have to dismantle some of your thought forms to deal with it. The 7 doubles are Bagad Kapurat, Beit Gimel Daled Kafei Resh Taf. My understanding is that that's a journey into the solar system from Saturn. So Saturn is Beit, Jupiter is Gimel because it enlarges and deals with bringing things into the body, metabolism. Dalet is Mars, which is setting boundaries. Kaf is the sun. Pei, beauty, is Venus. Resh is Mercury, which is the nervous system. And the moon is the Tav, which is the boundary that reflects the light back to source. So in that case, the Tav is the moon, which is the reciprocal energy in the universe, the fluctuating energy, the give and take. And then those letters, Keter falls on the central pillar of the tree of life. The Kaf is the connector between, this is high Kabbalah, by the way. The Kaf is the connector between the transpersonal realm and the heart energy in Tiferet. The Tav is the connector between the sun and the moon, Yesod and Tiferet, and then the Resh is the connector between the moon and Malchut, like that. And that's in Arya Kaplan. You'll find it there. You'll find it there.
So would you call those Lurianic correspondences?
Yeah, maybe. And I'm not a Lurianic Kabbalist. I'm an Abulafia Kabbalist. So, but I happen to. I looked carefully at Kaplan and I felt like there was one map there that worked for me and I understood it. And you can also say that the letters float. From different points of perception, you could put each of those doubles in different places. That's the only way that I can not become tyrannical in projecting my. But there's so few people who care about that. Really, the idea that what I'm working with Kabbalah is to help let go of the obscurations and the thought forms that impinge on a totally open understanding of the universe. So I'm more a Blakean Kabbalist. That way. I want to cleanse the doors of perception. There's a lot of minutiae that I'm willing to go to, but only when I see that the consciousness has clear mind to go to them, to go to that. Otherwise, it's a silly debate. You end up in kind of Aleister Crowley land or something. I don't know.
Two questions. One probably relatively simple, one not simple.
Okay. Well, let's do the simple one first.
Okay. If the Shekinah is associated with Malkuth,
Yes.
how could that? I don't get the ascendant thing there. Why isn't that Earth?
Well, it is Earth. It is Earth, but it is Malchut as the ascendant is your personal point of contact with the Earth energy. Per se,
Well, yeah, it's your window on the world in a way.
yeah, it's your window. It's where you it's where you take your first breath, where you make your connection with the Earth energy.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a little chat with Sandalphon as an angel, you know.
With Sandalphon?
Sandalphon, angel of the Earth,
Oh, cool.
Metatron's younger brother.
I never know. Okay, here's my not simple question.
I forgot you were going to ask that. Go ahead.
So like not simple, but how would you throw the beans of reincarnation onto the table of
The rice field of.
Yes. What you've discussed in terms of the Kabbalah and astrology. I mean, because in your work you integrate the three and how.
Well, this is what I look for if I'm looking for signatures. I'm looking for the position of the moon, significant. 8th house is significant. The nadir in a chart is significant, and the aspects to the moon and the lunar Rahu and Ketu, lunar nodes. So between all of that, 5 different areas of lunar stuff.
No nodes in there, huh?
No nodes in there. It's nodeless.
Did you say you see that from a signature?
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at the chart for patterns of significance. And then I have my own understanding of different cultures that the zodiac signs resonate with. So if I see somebody with moon in Libra, and I'm knowing that Libra loves symmetry,
Like China or something.
the Chinese and sometimes Greece seem to be significant past lives for people with signatures in Libra. And if somebody's got a moon in Capricorn, they've done some yogic stuff somewhere along the line and they like money. You know, so I have a few little things that are like my little guidebook for that.
So it was the sun and placement of the moon, the 8th house, the nodes, aspects to the moon.
4th house cusp, the nadir.
The nadir, yeah.
8th house cusp.
Uh-huh.
All of those, you know.
Can you give a practical application for Kabbalah
Well,
beyond astrology every day?
I would say that Kabbalah is the art and science of how to become a conscious creator. And my assumption is that we're all here to learn how to explore our creativity in such a way that we bring in beauty and we bring in divine energies onto this planet. So I consider Kabbalah the most useful, if you want to call it a metaphysical system, if you want to call it a perceptual cleanser, in helping a human being or helping a human being to understand that we're given a laboratory here, beyond the laboratory of our ego and our personality, to purify our acts of creation.
How do you use it that way?
Well, there's principles in Kabbalah that you learn that are very, very intrinsic to the creative process. And many people struggle in their creativity until they learn those, you know? So Kabbalah, on one level, teaches you how to bring things into the world of Asiya. On another level, it teaches you how to play in the world of Yetzirah, in the world of color and form and number and sound. That. So It's not as, I can't give you a kindergarten answer to that question. I'd love to be able to do that.
How long does it take to learn? How long does it take to learn?
Lifetimes, come on. You have to be born already a student to get moving with it.
Is this a copy of your book? This is a copy.
Yeah, I wanted to close by reading you a little bit. This is a work. I mean, it's still requiring some editing. Okay, we'll take a quick break. Those people that absolutely need to leave right now will leave. It looks like Zeb's putting on her coat, so we can't have much longer. And what was called the Mount of Configuration, Transfiguration. And I want to read it in such a way. This is my spin on Drunvalo's Merkava meditation, is really what it is. Okay? So I'll read a couple paragraphs up to it, and then you can hang with the meditation as best you can. But it's explicating the 18 breaths of that meditation. Okay?
Let me find out how to lock the door.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. Yourself up into Har Tabor in the north of Israel, which is, some people consider it to be the Mount of Transfiguration. Johanna takes a brief glance at her breathless tribe before mentioning to Chiara that some breathing practices might prove useful that day. Mark notices that there are a number of stone circles set up on a plateau not far from where the Latter-day Saints are resting. Look at this! Mark points with some excitement towards a series of 8 rock circles with 17 stones in each circle that surround a 9th circle in the middle. This leads to 153 stones, by the way. Betzalel. Mark makes his calculations out loud as if he were keeping the score in some important tennis match. 8 times 17 is 136, Kol, the voice in Hebrew. 9 times 17 is 153, Betzalel, the one who built the Ark of the Covenant. His name means, in the image and the shadow of the Elohim. Nurit, who's pretending to nurse Yonah at the time, asks Johanna in Dutch, with a translation for the others, if she just happened to find the stone circle that morning, or has it been mentioned in any of the guidebooks regarding Mount Tabor. Chiara stares at Nurit, visibly annoyed at her presence and her habit of wrapping teasing sarcasm in mock innocence, and replies, "The stones appeared before us as we were meditating. We heard some high-pitched whistling sounds like a swarm of cicadas, opened our eyes, and there they were." Akiva asked laconically if they were meditating on anything in particular at the time. Chiara points to the sea and informs Akiva, "We were counting fishes. Remember the story where the boys go fishing after the master's resurrection and catch nothing on the side of the boat? And exactly 153 on the right?" Akiva begins to radiate mischief and boyish good humor. "Yes, ma'am. I remember the passage as clearly as I can see the snow over yonder on Mount Hermon. We must be preparing for a sudden population explosion in the camp of the prophets. Virgin births, to be sure. Or perhaps a Holy Land tour group with 144 hungry members to be joining us for lunch. Mark will cook them up good. Me and Hillel will go fetch us some lemons." He's a Jewish boy from Chattanooga, Tennessee. "There's a great idea. We'll send the sons of thunder to fetch some lemons for Leviathan that Mark will cook up for lunch," Chiara said impatiently. Mark was fascinated with the stone circles. Asked Johanna if there were 4 medicine wheels of 4 stones for the 4 directions around each of the 17 stones. You could say that. Each set of 4 represents the 4 worlds, or the 4 faces that your friend Ezekiel saw in the Merkava vision. "What do you see at the center of the 9th wheel?" Johanna asked Mark softly. He comes close enough to the stone to notice that there's a perfectly shaped hole in the center of it. Looks like a galaxy or a squashed donut with a wormhole in the middle. There's a name for it. It's called a tube torus, I think. Sarah laughs and suggests, "Why don't you cook it up with the fish? If you add a little heat, it might melt down into some element we don't get enough of with our daily bread. You know, rhodium, iridium, kryptonite." Chiara notices that things could get out of hand and says coldly, Leave that shaman stone alone. Keep going. Hang in there for one more minute, okay? Akiva and Hillel come back with baskets full of lemons. Johanna surveys her flock, asks if they feel they're ready to join her in a Merkava breathing meditation. She asks Nurit if she's capable of joining the group and keeping Yona, little child, my daughter actually, in the dream state while she meditates. Nurit suggests Yona is already meditating and that she is the one who would like to stay in the dream state for as long as possible. Nurit. She's a Pisces, by the way. Johanna arranges her circle of 8 around the 8 stones composed of 17 each. She laughs to herself, says it won't be necessary for anyone to reveal any soul history, childhood trauma, or deeply guarded secrets to anyone at this time. She asks the members of her tribe to focus on a tube of light no larger... A tube of light no larger than a soda straw that extends from the wormhole at the center of the shaman stone to both the center of the earth and the center of our galaxy. She asks each member of her tribe to open a similar tube in their spinal column that goes out to Keter, the crown, to the center of the galaxy, and out Malchut at the base of the spine to the core of Adamah, the earth. Once you have the breathing down and you're visualizing the geometrical form called Kochav David, I will lead you through a series of breaths. Just be still in the center of vortex. Be a little yod at the center of Ein Chashma, the eye of electricity. Johanna proceeds to guide her tribe through a series of 18 breaths, offering names for each breath in Hebrew. And this is the Hebraic version of John Velos Merkava. Ruach Achad, unity breath. Breathe in your sense of oneness with all your relations. From your home in the world of Yechidah. Ruach Bereshit, breath of creation. Create 6 days of creation as a Star of David around Bereshit. Okay. Breath of creation. Around yourself. Ruach Gilgal. Breathe in all the wheels and waveforms. Breathe in all your past lives. Breathe in the sweet air from the hills of Galil. Ruach Gan Eden. Breathe light in through Keter, your crown, the way you used to breathe in the Garden of Eden, before our fall into this time-space continuum. Ruach Agaman. Breathe in your 5 soul bodies. Breathe in the angels that surround you. Uriel, Raphael, Gabriel, Mikael, Nuriel. I'll chant those for you. We'll ask those angels to linger in Zev's healing room for a while, if they choose to do it. Breathe in the pillars of light that connect you with Adam Kadmon, Ruach Vavim, Ruach Sheva. Breathe in the covenant, the promise, the oath you made before you came into your body. Ruach Chevron. Breathe in the love that the 8 ancestors have for you. Ruach HaTeva. Breathe in the earth energy that supports and moves through you. Ruach Eitz HaChaim. Breathe in light to fill the 10 spheres of your tree of life. Blow this light gently from Tiferet out to the rest of the universe. That's the 10th breath, blowing it out. Ruach HaKochavim. Breathe in the light of the stars from the heart of the sun. Ruach Elohim. Breathe in the gift of the co-creators. Breathe in the divine breath. Ruach Mashiach. Breathe in your own anointing at the pineal gland at the 3rd eye. Ruach Hineni. Breathe in from your Nefesh center in the belly. Breathe in from your Neshama center at the pineal gland, pineal. Breathe in both the serpent and the dove. Balance the earth energies and the star energies within you. Breathe in the Ahava the love that created you in connection to all beings in the universe. Johanna pauses in her meditative guidance for a few minutes to allow Nurit to complete the gentle sobbing that is pouring through her heart. Mark opens his eyes for a moment to feel the love vibration she is holding for the tribe in a unified field in that moment. He feels his own heart go out to his daughter and Nurit before returning to interior space. Johanna continues, Ruach HaSa'ara, breathe in the whirlwind, the counter-rotational spinning vortices of light that are beginning to emanate out from the heart of the circle, of our circle. Breathe in light, breathe out love. Ruach in Chashmal, or Ayin Chashmal. Breathe in at the eye of the vortex. Breathe from the still center at the core of all electromagnetic fields and spiral galaxies. Breathe in the void. Ruach HaOfanim. Breathe in the alternating faces of the energy field we're creating this very moment. Let your consciousness approach the speed of light. Johanna takes in a deep breath, blows it out through her mouth for a very long time before the 18th breath. Ruach Chai Olam. Breathe in the infinite life energy. Breathe in the life breath of this universe. So that's a condensed little journey through the 18 letters as codes for each of those 18 breaths, with as much of a Hebraic spin as I could give it so that it becomes a teaching. It's a beautiful meditation. I'll probably put it on tape at some point. I just put it into Johanna's mouth because it was easier to do it that way. So that's from the Transfiguration section. I hope as many people take to this book as, Celestine Prophecy or something that got popular.
Have you published this?
It's waiting for an agent to send it. I would like HarperCollins to publish it.
Do you have an agent that's sending it?
No, I'm waiting for somebody to give me the name of an agent.
I don't need to look at me with that expectation.
I'm going to keep looking. You asked these guys a question. Looks simple to me. You're looking at the paper.
How would you draw the 5 trees?
Oh, I was talking about 5 partsufim on one tree. But in the Gospel of Thomas, it does say that there's 5 trees
in paradise,
so I believe that each of these is a life energy, a tree into and of itself that it probably spreads out between the partsufim.
No, I understand.
But I don't know how to draw it.
So the five what in each what?
Partsufim, the 5 pairs that are complements and polarities of one another within the tree of life.
Yeah, good.
And then also you have 5 ancestors too. That's a teaching in Kabbalah. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and probably Benjamin.
I had a very interesting dream. I'll tell you this. Long time ago, I dreamt there was a naked priestess, like 9 months pregnant, and written across, and this was before I had studied the Bible and long before I knew anything about the Kabbalah, and written across her naked pregnant belly was the name Jacob. And this like booming voiceover of the dream came and said, "What is the symbolism of this name?" And I had to answer the question as the dreamer, and I freaked, and I answered correctly, but I didn't know what the answer was when I woke up.
The reward for answering it correctly was waking up, right? Otherwise, you did.
And I answered correctly. But when I woke up, I couldn't remember what the answer was. But a friend of mine, very observant Jew, had given me a book on Kabbalah that he said he wasn't allowed to read, but he thought I'd be into it. And but I'd never read it. I'd never cracked it open. And but I was like thinking about this. It was one of those big dreams, And so I pulled, at one point during the next couple of days, I pulled the book off my shelf, and in the different sephirot were the different patriarchs.
Uh-huh.
And then, and Jacob was in the position of Tiferet. Mm-hmm. And there was other things that I interpreted the dream as meaning, but I thought that was cool, that Jacob was...
Yaakov is the one who wrestles with Elohim and has, in the way that my teacher said, he almost has a sex change, meaning that he starts out working in a very male way, but he has a very strong feminine way of working. So actually he's working in a feminine way, and then he needs an act of gevura to wrestle with the angel, and then he becomes what in Hebrew is called Im Yisrael, the mother or the source of Yisrael, and he becomes, that becomes the whole notion of wrestling with the divine energies. And it's only after that the one called Benjamin is born.
Mm-hmm.
All the others are born before his wrestling. So Benjamin becomes the archetype of the messianic energy that
Yes.
comes into the world after that
Which is,
integration.
I would think that Benjamin would be interferent, but
Different Kabbalists will
it.
do it different ways. There's freedom in Kabbalah. So thank you very much for coming to Zev's office and in his little healing waiting room. And let's hope that what we, as the Buddhists would do, will dedicate what we did today to the healing of all beings who sit in these chairs from now until the end of time. Okay?
How nice. How nice.